All right, hello everyone. I'm just going to put together a short video to help you set up today's readings. Normally the videos come after, and certainly you can watch this video later, but today's video is useful before you read these readings. I'm doing these very, very short readings, and it's all we have left for the course is very, very short readings to feed you ideas of what you might research for your life form paper. We're done with the big rhetorical work. We're at about emotion, and we watch the TED Talks and different political positions and how we might use different language to persuade people. Now I'm simply trying to give you different ways to research for your life form paper. So it probably makes sense to revisit the life form paper. I've said a lot about it in previous videos, but today what I'm trying to do with the readings and with the short video is get you started to answering some of these questions, right? Talking about mainly ecological relationships. That is why I gave you this piece by Capra, a very, very short piece that is meant to introduce you to ecology and ecological thinking, at least very, very truncated form of it, that might help you with your thinking and decide what you might research, what you might want to figure out, so to speak, about your life form, whatever you've chosen. So here are some questions that'll get you going on that from the assignment sheet. You can spend some time with this. Some of these have to do with ecology. Some of them have to do more with communication and the other end of things, the rhetoric that people are using to defend you. Another way to think about this just for today, if I'm trying to teach you certain ways of thinking from the Capra article, ways to extend this, here's what people have concentrated on in the past. The biological or ecological portion, you're just going to teach us how is your life form doing, what are its challenges, what are its successes, right? It's the science part of your paper, so to speak, which is a major component of our course. We're not scientists, or at least not most of us, but we still need to engage, fruitfully with scientific thinking and scientific information. So here are a few things that anybody is familiar with and can talk about. And you want to set these up somewhere in your paper, maybe in the first several pages, just to teach us how your life form is doing before we start to weave in the rhetoric, the rhetorical frameworks that we've learned from the course readings, or maybe before you start to analyze culture and society and its other responses or representations of your life form. So all that is to say, the Capra essay, ecology and community. Here are some things that you can probably think about or should be thinking about that should be triggered by the essay. What are the changes to your food supply and habitat? That's what keeps things alive, right? This is ecological thinking. So you need to research that and you need to figure that out to see how your life form is doing, right? What are the changes to the food supply? Any changes to the food supply, how are they created? Is it toxins and chemicals from human nature? Is it a decreasing habitat? Do you have predators moving in? What's going on here? Where are you in the food chain? Who eats you? What do you eat? Right? This is ecological scientific thinking for this paper. You're going to answer some of these questions and describe your situation, how you're doing by teaching us these things. Now, maybe not all of these are relevant, but some of them will be relevant. And today I'm trying to feed you areas to research. Where will you find these things? Books, online. You don't need to have peer-reviewed research or massive academic books. These are things that you can find on just a good web page from a .org, a social activist group, a nice science page, a university website, depending. So that's a fine place to research and gather this information. Do you need to cite it all? The answer is probably no. What I always say is if you can find the same thing in 3 or 4 different places, it's common knowledge. Nobody owns that knowledge. Probably don't have to cite it. So that's a great way to think about this paper and citation when you're starting to gather up all this information. So you see a few things to think about. How are you affected by humans? Agriculturally, how are you affected? Are you pushed out by farmland? Again, are toxins being used? Are you being hunted because you're sneaking up? If you're a predator, you're sneaking up on cattle, and therefore your numbers are decreasing because you're being shot or something like this, or poisoned or whatever it might be. So how are you affected by humans? By agriculture, by urbanization, by domestication of other animals, or domestication of you, perhaps, depending what your life form is, right? And this kind of sounds like it's animals, but it could also be plants, of course, or microbes, or whatever you are. But start to think about how people are affecting you, and how your basic natural state, what is good for you, is changing. That's what I want you to take away from Capra. If we move on to the next short reading for today, Meadows, I did this because it works more with groups, communities, publics that might help you. So if we take a look at Meadows real quick, um, one of the basic areas, read the whole thing and take away what you will, but I will point you toward one area, this area right here. People ask, what can I do? What can governments do? There's a major group I would research concerning all of these issues from Capra, how you're doing, right? What are governments doing? Are their policies helping you or are they hurting you? Are they even paying attention to you, right? We could add then beyond government, social activist groups. What are corporations doing? They might be harming you in their actions. Certain businesses, you are an animal or a plant or you're part of the environment, so you're a resource. People are harvesting you, maybe legally, maybe illegally. Maybe you're being over-harvested. Maybe you're being under-harvested for your fur or for your agricultural purposes, whatever it might be, right? So how are you being harvested? What are corporations doing? What are some negative ones doing? What are some positive examples, right? We talked in a previous video about positive examples being the best way to persuade people to take positive actions, to model those good actions. That was from the emotions video, right? And so what are the, you want to research eventually, what are corporations doing that are positive to help you? Are they replanting you if they take you? Are they not taking as much of you? Are they looking for artificial alternatives that might keep up your numbers? What's going on here, right? What are, public groups doing? This could be social activist groups, but schools, religions, media. How are you talked about? What are the negative portrayals of you? The portrayals of other people heroically stopping you when maybe you don't need to be heroically stopped. Maybe it's actually treading on you. It's a problem for you. So how are the media representing you? All these things are good things to talk about. Can you talk about all of these things in one paper? No. But early on in this project, you should be thinking about all the different groups and how they portray you and how they use you as a resource as well. That puts us right into scientific thinking, but also into rhetorical thinking and how you're used and how you are portrayed in the public sphere. We could think of older course ideas that you'll want to think about and use in this paper. We could think of that. Remember the Discourse in Wolves article? How are people talking about you scientifically or ecologically? Is that helpful to you? Or are people shifting into ethical arguments, say the government? Are they only being scientific and that's not helping you because you really need an ethical argument to help you out? And so you can critique the government and you could basically say, the government is only looking at me scientifically. Here's the ethical argument the government should be making, however, they're not. So you're an informed, well-read, highly literate life form, plant, animal, whatever you are. Of course, you can look at social and cultural arguments and representations too, whether or not they're helping you or hurting you or simply not happening, right? These are all things you should be looking for as you begin your research. Another one you can start looking for right away, again, this ties in the science to the rhetoric to some extent. Why is your life form necessary? Not just for the environment or for you, but for a better human life. This is one argumentative framework you need to use in this paper. Because as we know from our rhetorical readings, our readings on rhetorical frameworks, people are more persuaded when they learn that something is a threat or a risk or better, an improvement for their human life. Right? And so you need to make that argument in this paper, as I've mentioned many times. So start looking for this. How are you good for humans? If you disappear, is that just an early warning sign of eco-catastrophe? Great, maybe that's good enough. But if you actually have a larger impact, should you disappear or become too abundant, or when your numbers are balanced, that's good for human life. Maybe for agriculture in some way, crops grow better when you're in ecological balance with your environment, whatever it might be. But find out, how are you good for human life? And again, it could be any of these ways back here, right? So you may be thinking, I don't have a connection to human life, but you probably have a connection to the food chain, food consumed by humans. You maybe have some type of connection to urbanization, problems with urbanization. Maybe it would be helpful if we had you in cities, but we don't. Who knows, right? So be thinking of these types of things, and you're going to be doing a great job doing early research. And just a second question, really reifying the first. How would a major change to your life form's existence change the present, the local, the human, the important rhetorical frameworks to persuade people that to take on environmental problems, to tackle environmental problems, right? So all of these things are lots of things that you can research. Today, and in the next several days to start your project, nail down just who you are for your own learning. What are your problems? You need to be fluent in these things first. After you've got that down, you're feeling pretty good about that, over the next 1, 2, 3 days, I would start to move on to this type of thinking. And tomorrow's readings are going to help you with this. And I would start to tackle these types of questions. What are the different groups that are helping you or hindering you, and how are they doing so? That's important for your paper as well. All right, thank you very much, everyone, and I look forward to you starting your papers.